Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, but the sun never rises. You check your watch, it's noon, but outside it looks like twilight. The sky isn't black, but a sickly, bruised blue. There are no shadows. The air feels heavy, dry, and cold. You wait for the clouds to pass, but they don't. Not the next day, not the next week, not for 18 months. This sounds like the plot of a science fiction movie, or perhaps a horror story. But for the people living in the year 536 AD, this was their reality. Historians have debated for decades about which year was truly the worst time to be alive. Was it 1347, the year the Black Death arrived? Was it 1918, during the height of the Spanish flu and World War I? According to Michael McCormick, a historian and archaeologist at Harvard University, the answer is definitive. The worst year to be alive was 536, because that was the year the sun went out and the world began to fall apart. Welcome to Era by Era. Today, we are stepping back 1,500 years to witness the moment humanity almost went extinct and the mystery that took modern science decades to solve. To understand the horror of 536, we have to look at the historical accounts. Usually, when ancient historians write about darkness, we assume they are being metaphorical. They might be talking about the death of a king or a lost war. But in 536, writers from completely different continents who had no contact with each other all described the exact same terrifying phenomenon. Procopius, a Byzantine historian living in the bustling city of Constantinople, wrote this chilling observation. For the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during the whole year. He went on to say that men were free neither from war, nor pestilence, nor any other thing leading to death. Across the ocean in Ireland, the Gaelic annals recorded a failure of bread. In China, the stars disappeared from the sky, and the imperial chroniclers reported that yellow dust fell like snow. In Mesopotamia, the sun turned blue. This wasn't just a cloudy day. A mysterious dry fog had blanketed the entire northern hemisphere. It was so thick that even at noon you couldn't see your own shadow on the ground. And with the darkness came the cold. Before this event, the Roman Empire, or what was left of it in the east, was thriving. The weather was warm, crops were abundant, and trade was flowing. But as the fog settled, the temperature on Earth plummeted. In the summer of 536, snow fell in China. The crops froze in the fields. In the Middle East, fruits withered on the vine. We now know that the temperature dropped by an average of 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius globally. It kicked off the coldest decade in the last 2,300 years. Imagine the psychological terror. You're a farmer in the 6th century. You don't know what a volcano is. You don't know what atmospheric science is. All you know is that God has turned away from the world. The sun, the source of all life, has died. The immediate result was famine, but not just a normal hunger. This was a total collapse of the food chain. Without sunlight, the grain couldn't grow. In Ireland, the chronicles imply that people resorted to desperate measures to survive. In Scandinavia, the devastation was so complete that archaeologists verify nearly 75% of villages were abandoned in this period. In fact, many historians believe this specific event in Scandinavia gave birth to the Norse myth of Fimbulwinter. This was the prelude to Ragnarok, the end of the world, a terrible winter that lasts for 3 years with no summer in between. For the Vikings' ancestors, the apocalypse wasn't a myth. They were living through it. But the darkness and the hunger were only the first two waves of the disaster. The third wave was biological. Because the global temperature had dropped so drastically, the ecological balance of the world shifted, and because the population was starving, their immune systems were shattered. Humanity was weak, cold, and densely packed into cities, praying for salvation. Instead of salvation, they got the Bubonic Plague. 5 years after the darkness began, in 541 AD, the plague of Justinian arrived. This was the first true pandemic in recorded history. It arrived at the port of Pelusium in Egypt and spread like wildfire through the Roman Empire. The bacteria, Yersinia pestis, hitchhiked on rats that were fleeing the cooling wilderness to find warmth in human homes. The results were apocalyptic. In Constantinople, the capital of the world, people were dying so fast they couldn't be buried. Bodies were stacked inside guard towers. The emperor Justinian himself caught the disease, and though he survived, his empire did not. It is estimated that up to 50 million people died, nearly half of the population of the known world at the time. So, we have a mysterious fog, a frozen summer, a global famine, and a plague. But for centuries, the biggest question remained: what caused it? For a long time, historians were baffled. There were no records of a massive asteroid impact. There were no records of a volcano exploding near Rome or China. It was a cold case, quite literally. It wasn't until very recently, in 2018, that a team of researchers led by the University of Maine finally cracked the code. They didn't find the answer in a book. They found it in the ice. By drilling deep into a glacier in the Swiss Alps, scientists extracted an ice core, a long cylinder of frozen history. Ice captures particles from the atmosphere year by year, acting like a time capsule. And when they analyzed the ice layer from the year 536, they found microscopic shards of volcanic glass. They matched the chemical fingerprint of this glass to a massive volcanic eruption. But it wasn't Vesuvius. It wasn't anywhere near Rome. The culprit was likely a volcano in Iceland or possibly North America. The explosion was so massive, so violent, that it didn't just spew ash onto the nearby ground. It ejected millions of tons of sulfur, bismuth, and ash straight into the stratosphere. Once the ash hit the upper atmosphere, the jet stream caught it and spread it like a blanket across the entire northern hemisphere. This volcanic veil reflected the sunlight back into space, turning the Earth into a dark, freezing refrigerator. And the ice cores revealed something else even more terrifying. It didn't happen just once. Just as the air was starting to clear, another massive eruption occurred in the year 540 and another in 547. It was a triple tap of volcanic fury that ensured the world stayed broken for decades. The consequences of this worst year reshaped history forever. Because of the weakness of the Roman Empire, their enemies moved in. The freezing temperatures pushed the nomadic tribes of the Eurasian steppes, like the Avars and eventually the Mongols, to move west in search of pasture. The collapse of trade routes forced economies to become local, arguably setting the stage for the feudal system of the Middle Ages. In the Americas, the great city-state of Teotihuacan began to collapse, and the Moche civilization in Peru faced a climate crisis that led to civil war. The year 536 didn't just kill millions of people, it killed the ancient world. It drew the curtain on antiquity and ushered in the Dark Ages, literally. So the next time you think the news today is bad or the weather is gloomy, remember the people of 536. They endured 18 months of twilight, lived through the death of summer, and survived the collapse of civilization. We are the descendants of those who survived the darkness, And if they could make it through the worst year in history, perhaps we can handle whatever tomorrow throws at us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the past, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are digging up the lost stories of our world, era by era. Let us know in the comments, if the sun disappeared tomorrow, how long do you think our modern society would last? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next era.